Hi guys, welcome to 10 for the Designers. My name is Ernie Vasquez, I'm a tech designer.
My name is Kirk Tomei. I'm a senior technical designer here at Cloud Imperium Games.
So first of all, we'd like to thank the subscribers for making this show possible and for us actually being able to share extra information with you guys on what we've been doing. So we have some questions. Let's see if we can get them answered.
Yeah, this is exciting for us because this is our first stab at this particular show, and but we hope to have a lot of fun with it, and we're going to enjoy this direct interaction with the subscribers and the community. This question is from Willie Pete. It's specifically about the Xi'an Scout. So the spec sheet has almost no information for the Xi'an Scout. He's right. Can you please give us some of the basics, such as weapon loadout, max speed, size of the components like shields, generators, etc.? It is billed as a Scout Explorer. What jump point size can it go through, and how is that implemented in the ship? The pictures only show the cockpit and not any interior space. What are we looking at, if anything, for the interior space? Okay, so quite a few questions about the ship, and we do have some of the specs determined. These are going into what we call the white box phase. It's the very first phase of the ship implementation, where we take the raw geometry for the ship and then try to do things like determine where the thrusters go, how that's going to actually make the ship handle in space. Because of our new internal and physicalized ship components, we're determining the sizes of those and where they can actually go onto the ship itself as well. So to answer some of the questions, the ship is going to have 2 size 3 lasers for sure. Looking into possibly putting another set of size 2 lasers up on the top of the ship to give it some extra armament. There's going to be 1 medium shield. It's a rather large ship when it is open and flying, so we wanted to give it some additional protection from forward-facing shots. It's going to have 2, possibly 4 small power plants, and much like the Herald is going to have, it's going to have 1 small jump drive. Because it is smaller than, I believe, the Endeavor, it is going to be able to utilize any size jump point. So it can use any jump point, and it won't have any trouble using any of the jump points in the PU. Its top speed is going to be 270 meters per second. This is as opposed to the Hornet's 200 meters per second, so it's going to be a very fast maneuverable ship. There is no interior space planned, so much like the Hornet, it's going to be a fighter type of spacecraft, and so there's no internal space that is planned for the ship itself. So I hope that answers the questions about the Scout.
Solus Obscuri. Regarding modularity of the Caterpillar, some elements of the design, like the repair and salvage chop shop for example, seems to need external access to outer space. Others, like the crew module, would ideally not have that exposure. Will there be limitations on what order the modules can be assembled in order to have the correct access to the airlock and the forward module, or will these modular units have their own external airlocks so that they can be assembled without order restrictions? So, talking with a lot of the designers, we've kind of discussed that each module is going to be designed with the thought that it'll need to be interfaced with all the other modules around it. And basically, so some of the modules will have the extra airlock. Some of them will directly open up to the outside, like we talked about, like the clamshells kind of just open up a little bit, so that way things can be set up like the ramp. Mm-hmm. I think you helped me out, with some of the modules, kind of looking how they would kind of fit in with the other ones.
Sure.
So we played around with the concept of the side opening, the whole side being turned into a ramp, and so there's going to be some restrictions. For instance, the front module is going to have it set up to where only the front module can be changed out with front modules, and then the other modules are all basically the same modules that can go in there. Mm-hmm. And then the players can basically just make their choice of what modules are there.
Sure, but it seems like it's going to be less of a Lego type of system and more of these are the particular module types that can go into this bay of the ship itself.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we played with. Like, we had some ideas of making a restriction where we had some other ideas where, like, you know what, if the player just wants to put in all personnel modules, let them, you know, and then kind of, so we're still up in the air about whether we're going to let them just do whatever they want or set it to be pure restrictions. So it kind of answers the question, but we're still thinking about it, and we have a lot of modules planned, so.
So, Beer for the Beer God, nice name, asked, at what stage of development is thruster placement, thruster power, mass distribution, and other elements related to flight integrated? How far along the process does a ship go before it or a facsimile of the ship is flown for the first time? Deadweight responded with, good question. How will ships like the Xi'an Scout, which is all thrusters, handle against a ship like the Cutlass, which has fewer but more powerful thrusters? Is there a blank ship that can have variable mass and variable thrusters thrown all about it to take a dry run of the ship before the design is finalized? This is a great question. Randy is also involved in implementing ships, and so he has some experience in this as well. But our flight system uses the mass and the actual physics bounds of the ship, along with its center of mass, to determine what its flight characteristics are. Our thruster placement and the thruster, the output of the thrusters, what angles of attack the thrusters can actually influence, and other variables like our turning speed for like the actual spinning speed of the ship, are variables that we can all play with. But to the end result of all this is that we can take a cube and make it fly, and we can place thrusters on it how we want, and fortunately we don't have to get to that step. Typically we do have the white box model that we can take as a reference. We physicalize it, so we put actual geometry that determines its physical bounds, and then we position the thrusters based on the concept and see how it actually flies. We can do things like actually nudge the actual thrusters themselves so that they can influence the mass of the ship better. But all this stuff is possible without having any finalized geometry. So we can actually figure out what the ship is going to fly like before having something that's anywhere close to final. And so that helps a lot in determining what the ship's flight characteristics is going to be. What's been your experience with that?
So Caterpillar that I've been working on, you helped me out with we're looking at the thruster placement on that, and then trying to get it. And one of the things that we had issues with was it's the asymmetricalness of it.
Right.
Asymmetricalness. So the asymmetry of it, basically, when we had placed the initial thrusters, like that thing was just like flying all over the place, and it was like so hard to control. Right. And then so like you were helping me to like trying to like adjust some of the things. So.
Right, and something that Randy discussed with me earlier was that the mass distribution does play an important part in the flight characteristics of a ship, and so asymmetrical ships with mass that isn't quite balanced makes it a challenge to have the ship fly straight, and in a way that you kind of need the ship to fly so that you can actually make it do what you want to do in space.
The ballast, also like the ballast controls and everything that we were trying to start getting on board and online, like that would, with the asymmetrical ships, like that would help out big time. Even the regular ships, like once the ballast gameplay and everything gets in stuff, so like if you're using so much ammo, then the ammo goes away. Ballast, like filling in for that and adjusting to where it needs or whatever. Yep,
we'll eventually be able to do things like put ballast in places of the ship. Here's the secret: the Vandal ships are completely faked as far as their balance, because the wings are so large that they make the flight characteristics difficult to balance, and so cheated a little bit on the wings. This is especially true in the case of the Scythe, because of its large right wing and its rather minuscule left wing. We needed to kind of cheat the system so that the flight model thinks that both of them weigh the same. Therefore, it'll find a straight line. Otherwise, it would just be this crazy thing that you could not control. And so, but rest assured, we're using real physics to actually make the ships fly in space.
Can the command module, we're talking about the Caterpillar, reattach in the field space, or will we need to somehow get the main body towed back to port? So, the command module is actually being designed as like a kind of escape pod or like a quick getaway, and it's going to have limited QT capabilities. It's going to be able to dock and redock with the main hull of the ship. So the reason why to undock or to redock is basically up to the crew, and one of the ideas I had was basically to have like a baton pass with the main hull of the ship. And we had discussed this earlier about like you gave me the example of like the 18-wheeler. Do you want to explain?
Well, it's actually yours. Why don't you just explain? Because it's a great analogy, and I think it really illustrates how this whole mechanic will work.
Yeah. So basically, taking like an 18-wheeler ship, right, or 18-wheeler today, and it has like the main cabin that drives the engine, and then you have the actual like the back part, the rear part of it. So basically, just detaching that main cabin part and then popping up the 18-wheeler part, or the rear, another one can just pop right in. So you can play like hot potato with it, kind of, and like, all right, well, now I'm controlling it, I'm taking it in this leg of the journey, or I'm taking it this leg of the journey and stuff, even swapping cargo or whatever, and like just the different, it works within the different variants, but the gameplay is still pending, so
sure.
We'll see how all that works, because you had mentioned like all the security stuff that
sure.
need to be done.
Yeah, I think something we need to think about is because you can hot swap these command modules, we want to put in some kind of security measures so that you can just pirate one away without at least a little bit of effort. So we're actively discussing these types of things, and hopefully we'll have these systems online when the ship is actually available to fly. So. Okay, next question comes from Zodiac Medicae, another cool name. Is it difficult to do HangarReady designs for concepts that are not fully fleshed out yet? I would constantly second guess myself with interface design on stuff like e-war consoles. Yes and no. While it is difficult to design interfaces for components that haven't been fleshed out yet, the happy answer for us is that we don't need to. So what we do is we determine the actual physical sizes of the screens that are going to serve as the bed for the actual interaction. Then the team that is responsible for doing this interaction, such as e-war or other things such as ship power management in any of the stations that we have, they get to work actually designing out the systems and the interface along with the UI team for how that's going to work. We basically have a big blank canvas that we just need to position and make useful within the ship. So that part of it is rather easy. We designed the space so that the player can take that station, and then the magic of the design system, once it comes online, simply shows up on that screen, and the player is able to interact with that. So kind of roundabout answer to your question, but I hope that serves to describe how we do our ship interior design when we're in the white box phase.
Yeah, I mean, the two ships that I'm working on so far was like, the Starliner, which had a whole another host of just interior designs and layouts that we went through, like all those iterations, in which you guys should have already hopefully seen. And then hopefully next I'll be able to actually show them all the interior layouts and designs for the Caterpillar, because
right.
all the interiors are crazy, and making sure that they fit within the FPS metrics, and then making sure that they are fitting for like the hull of the ship, the exterior, and making sure it just matches with the ship itself. It is a blank canvas. It sometimes gets a little overwhelming, especially at starting. You're like, what can I do with this?
Right, but there's going to be systems that we haven't designed yet because of the particular type of responsibility that the Caterpillar is going to have. But we know that we need to make a station for doing, say, the cargo management. Mm-hmm. We know that we just have a 16 by 9 space that we need to fill the screen with when the player is manned at that station. So we designed that space. When that particular gameplay is fleshed out with its UI, it'll just magically overlay onto that space that we've already set aside for that particular mechanic.
Yeah, well, some of the stuff we've already talked about with like multi-crew and everything, and then working with the designers in UK, working with like Zane and everything for just all the different screens, the seats, the functions of those seats, what each one kind of does, like all that stuff's really starting to come on board. So hopefully when you guys actually get to play with more of the multi-crew stuff, then you'll be able to see a lot more of the designs actually come alive and stuff like that, and we can keep kind of just pushing the envelope of what we want for the intention of what like Star Citizen is. You know?
Right. Good plug. When I say UI, I really mean Zane.
I have a question from Beer for the Beer God as well. Both the Herald and Caterpillar advertise as being intended for nefarious pirate purposes. A common example is the Herald jamming signals, while the Caterpillar, with Cutlass Export, does the dirty work. How do both of you envision piracy to work within Star Citizen, and how have you designed the Herald and Caterpillar in accordance with that understanding? The Caterpillar in particular was always designed as a search and rescue, right? Then the other variants, when they were starting to be designed and concepted, that's when it was taken to like, oh, well, it could do this, it could do this, and it was always kind of designed to support and work in tandem with the other Drake ships.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of started with that. So basically talking with a lot of the other designers and seeing what they were, because like I think you and Sherman were actually working on the Herald for a bit.
Yep, as far as the internal components and whatnot, yep.
So then like I got a chance to look at the components they're doing, and then look at the intent of that, and then kind of just build in stuff right to the Caterpillar to kind of work with those guys. So can't really talk about too much gameplay yet because it's still being designed, and when I'm actually able to show them the actual interior spaces and talk about more of the Caterpillar designs, then I'll be able to give more information. But yeah, they are built with the intention to support one another. And like the example I gave you earlier was like, I really see the Herald running close support and being really close to like the Caterpillar, where the Caterpillar is going to be in like the main person of the formation, and then having like cutlasses kind of sit around them,
right?
And like just being like support and dropping in and taking out, so that way they can do the quick dash and grabs and stuff like that, and then store it right on the Caterpillar, as well as kind of blanket the area for like just E-war stuff.
Right, and piracy seems to be a very popular topic, and truth is we're still ironing out a lot of the details, but rest assured, whenever we're designing any systems for these ships, because of how pirate-centric the ship is, that's always at the forefront of any of the designs that we implement for this ship. Okay, next question is from Mount OG Bogey. Okay. There seems to be a disparity in ship weights compared to what's represented in the model and XML values, etc. A ship that is big on the exterior but is mostly on the inside but weighs as much as it looks like from the outside, and ships that are smaller and touted to have armor, obviously solid or densely packed, that weigh less than slightly bigger hollow ships. Is there going to be a standard metric to determining the ship weights based on the volume the ship takes up and the possible list of materials the ship would be made out of? Great question, and I'm going to be honest with you all. This is all currently a guess. So all of our ship masses at the moment are rough estimates based on the typically the general bounds that the ship takes up, so its volume. We don't currently have solid metrics for the actual physical space, therefore the mass would be represented in the ship. There's also material densities that we haven't quite figured out yet. That is coming down the pike, but until then it's kind of all eyeballed. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to get more concrete metrics for all of these masses and densities and whatnot to determine more realistic values of ships. This will be especially important when ballast and especially cargo come online. So cargo itself is going to be they're obviously going to take up space and mass, and they will change the characteristics, the flight characteristics of ships when you're laden with a bunch of cargo, especially on ships that can take on a bunch, like massive amounts such as the Constellation. Huge cargo bay when it's full of really massive boxes of stuff. The flight characteristics are going to change. How will they change? That's what we're determining now. So that will come someday soon. And when we figure that out, I think we'll have a little bit more realistic values for all the masses of our ships.
One of the things, like you mentioned, the Constellation, and one of the things is whenever we get cargo up and running, and then that adds extra weight, the center of mass changes on the ships. So the thrusters will have to be smart enough to adjust, and then again, going back to the asymmetrical ships, like my Caterpillar, we had talked, all that cargo would be in the front of the ship, and then all the weight for like fuel and everything else would be in the back of the ship. So when it's empty, the center of mass is actually closer to engineering, but then when all the cargo is there, then the mass changes by like a good almost 10 meters.
Sure.
It changes, so it's going to be interesting once we get that on board.
Sure, and once all this stuff is working, it will help incentivize us to better design interchangeable thrusters, so that, hey, maybe you do need thrusters that have slightly slower attack but are able to move more mass efficiently, especially across the long stretches of space that will encompass the PU gameplay for moving tons of cargo.
Cargo is going to be very encompassing for all the stuff we have, like with mining and salvaging and repair and all that mess.
Yep.
Cool. So I have a question that actually multiple people asked. Can the Caterpillar stretch or contract with more or less modules? So as of right now, the design is to not stretch. It's not going to be like one of the whole series. It's basically going to be the modules. The modules will fit within there. So like right now, I think 6 modules. So like the front module and then like 5 other ones. And then the players can basically just swap whatever they want based on whatever their needs and based on what they want the ship to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think this again, going back to that Lego analogy, that system, I think it just causes too much havoc. You could have, it might let you make just a single module ship or 1,000 module ship, and it's not something that we really want to plan around. So
I would hate to put like 1,000 thrusters.
Yes, I think starting off with the determined number of modules is going to be resultant in the best working ship that we can deliver.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one. So yeah, hopefully once we release more information on the Caterpillar, we can actually let you guys know all the different module variants and stuff that you could play with.
My final question. Skiffy writes, with many citizens owning multiple ships, I'm curious if it would be possible to staff spare ships entirely by NPCs. For example, if I'd like to pilot my Carrack to go exploring, but send my research back to have NPCs on the Endeavour start crunching, plus send coordinates I discovered back to my Reclaimer, who could start basic salvage operations, or to a lesser extent, could I simply send coordinates to my ship's NPCs, who could get them staged for my arrival? A lot of ships in that question. There was a response from Wilborg, 1978. I have similar questions to that. If I run as a player in a Carrack with on all NPC crew, can I hire additional NPCs to escort my Carrack with a Starfarer and or Vanguard? Or is it ship size for escorts limited so that only little ships like a Herald, Hornet, and so on can be used for escorts? Is it possible as a solo player to play the Carrack with an NPC crew and put an NPC on the Endeavour so I can transfer the found stuff from my Carrack to the Endeavour, or is it impossible for a solo player? These are all great questions, and the happy answer is yes. We plan for the NPCs to completely man a ship that you own, or multiple ships. They'll work just like the contract system for a human player that is going to be flying your ship, but they'll simply be NPCs. And so
how does that work though with, like, if I'm in one ship though and then just the NPC captain, because like how the seats are broken down with everything?
Sure. Well, when we get the NPCs to work, you'll actually give them contracts, and so you're telling them what to do with the ship. So if the command is I'm transferring my cargo to the ship that is owned by me, and I want you to take it back to our hangar or base or whatever, and sell it. That is something that is planned to happen. And so you don't need to babysit all of the standard activities that a ship that you own can handle, so long as you have NPCs that can handle all the stations on that ship. And so I think that'll be a lot of fun because
it'd be risky though.
Sure, but with that, it lets you give some of the responsibilities for the stuff that you need to get done, but may not want to sit, on the ship itself, awaiting its function to go do. So if it's a lesser task, and I have a ship to do that, why not let me do that? So it's gonna be, I think,
I'd love
really
to have
useful.
a fleet. I'd love to have a fleet of ships, but at the same time, it's like, do I want to bring my whole fleet out? Because if I get attacked, I can only do so much.
Well, again,
it's like that's the real risk reward, right?
Right, and that's the decision you make, and so I think that's where the fun comes, because you figure out what works best for you and what you want to allow these NPCs to handle, and with experience, as time goes on, I think people will figure out what works optimally for them. So
I would just get like 10 Hornets then, and just have my one ship, then I have like 10 Hornet escorts. If anything comes in, they're not messing with me.
All right, or I might wait for you outside your hangar, and as
You
soon as
would.
you send your ship out, I'm attacking and taking everything. So that'll be fun.
Cool. So last question is actually from Deadweight. A question about the design process itself in regards to heavily modular ships like the Caterpillar, Endeavor, and Hull series. How do you go about sketching out the game mechanics that revolve around the modules themselves? Do you all sit around a conference room throwing around ideas to see what might and might not work? Are there any balance considerations with ships that can effectively change the entire makeup from heavy combat to mostly harmless, or from repair and medical to pure hauling? Or do you just let mass and power limitations govern what players can and can't do? We do actually design each module out for a purpose. We do sometimes sit around in a conference room, and we also do have a lot of design considerations that we put into it. And sometimes we have the power limitations govern what the design is based on just whether it's OP, whether it's functional, whether it's... So like the main thing is like each ship is completely different. In the case of the Caterpillar, like we looked a lot into what it was intended to do. So like, the original intent was search and rescue. And then we started looking at some of the other ones, like the other variants, which, we were like, the possibility of variants were the merchant marine, and then the small scale salvage. So we started looking at, okay, well, what does a search and rescue need, right? So search and rescue, you need like a medical bay. So boom, we got a medical bay check. We need a place to house the crew as well as the medical crew. So bam, now that's like an extra personnel one right there. And then, you need cargo just in case. You also need launch bays, so that way you can get people launched out to go save people and stuff, it's like kind of like this, like the dive rescues, right?
Sure. I think what you're describing is like the whole top-down approach, though. First, the ship function itself is determined, and then once we determine the particular type of function, then we design the module so that it'll serve that function and what those needs are for that particular module. And so we keep diving down deeper to try to figure out, because for us as designers, we're determining what the player interaction with the ships are. And therefore, to accomplish those particular tasks that the ship is suited for, what works best as far as the components, in this case, the modules on that ship.
And the important thing is also feasibility, like, because I made a couple modules, or designed and spec some couple modules, and people were like, I don't know if that would work, or we need to tone that down a little bit, just to make sure it wasn't, crazy overpowered.
Yeah.
But
can you talk about some of the examples of the ones that have been designed out so far?
Like we have like the medical bay, and we have the cargo bay, we have some of the personnel bays, and we have multiple variants, even different of the different modules themselves. So like we have 2 different cargo modules, right?
So what are the differences in those?
So like one of the cargo ones we have is where one has like a catwalk, so that way you lose about like 15 to 20 SCU, I think, with a catwalk. But then it's a catwalk, so you can actually go through and walk through the cargo and get through the entire ship. Because if you fill up an entire bay of cargo, then you can't walk through it. So if you wanted to get to the other side of the ship, basically you either have to like exit the ship to go back in through a different docking port or something like that. So the player can set up the ship however they want. And based on what modules they choose for their ship, they have to deal with the consequences of, okay, this is what this one has the strengths, this is what the weaknesses of this one, and this module does this.
That's good. So that there are positives and negatives to each type, and then the player is able to determine what works best for them.
Yep. One of the ones we're playing with, so like, everybody's always talking about like the pirate stuff, so we're talking about like, you know, some more attack, more aggressive type modules to add to it, and also the ones like people are like, oh, well, it's useless, but cargo is kind of, you know, still has hard points on it. So like each side of the bay has like tractor beam hard points, right? Like size 1s. So if you wanted to, you could swap those tractor beams out for like 2 size 1s, right? Like
cool.
ships. So you can kind of like.
I wouldn't.
I know.
I keep the tractor beams, but all right.
You never know. People want to put like, you know, guns on the bay, the cargo bay. Let them do it. Have fun. Good luck. If you guys come up with other ways to use this stuff, awesome. Because emergent gameplay is something that we're really trying to just let them have the toy and then let them see what they do with it.
Cool.
So, cool. I think that's our 10 questions.
Yeah, I think that's it. Well, this was a blast. Thank you, everybody, especially the subscribers, for allowing us to have this moment of interaction. Not the quickest, it's not instantaneous, but at least we're attempting some sort of back and forth with the community. But this really allows us to get feedback from everyone and come up with what we feel is in the community's best interest and what you guys want to see. And this helps a lot. So this has been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Keep hitting up the forums. Let us know what you think. Also, give us more questions, even if it's not just 10 for whatever department with the writers and stuff like that. Like, we'd love to read the forums and get to you guys feedback and everything. So, see you guys out there.
Hey guys, thanks for watching 10 for the Chairman. If you guys would like to see more episodes, go here. If you guys would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel and always keep up to date with all our video content, go here. And if you guys would like to watch episodes of Around the Verse, go here please. And I will see you in the verse.
This video made possible by the ICC Stellar Surveyors and subscribers like you.